And welcome back to this very special edition of the Factor Uncensored. We are remembering the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. And if you know anything about history and Dr. King, you knew he had a distrust for law enforcement of this country. You can look at the old footage and see individuals, mainly black people, attacked by dogs and water hoses and billy clubs of law enforcement officers. But law enforcement has changed in this country, and we want to talk about Dr. King's legacy with two elected officials here in the city of Houston. We have with us Constable Smokey Phillips with Precinct 7 and Constable Herschel Smith from Precinct 3 in Waller County. Glad to have you here both on the Factor Uncensored. When you think about Dr. King and his legacy and his distrust of law enforcement, obviously you know what he went through back then.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, when I think about that, I think about, paving a way. He paved the way for us in many ways. History is everything. If they take away our history, we lose a lot. And that's what have happened to us in the past. Growing up in school, black history was taken away. It wasn't the same thing that we was being taught, So a lot of those things we was affected by it, but at the same time, it was the parents and the black church and the black preachers that was keeping the people together in the community. But we're losing that. We're losing that.
Smokey, your thoughts about the history of law enforcement and policing, particularly in America. When you look at the early models, it began with pulling from the English, their policing system, but also slave patrols. And it was designed to retrieve slaves who ran away from their plantations and their masters.
Well, what resonates with me more was what Dr. King said: injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And we know during that time, during the Civil Rights era, during the Voting Rights Act, that the police was the hammer of the Klan. Mm-hmm. The Klan that raided violently people's homes, the police, with the police enjoying with them. So if you look at everyone knew Dr. King had a resonated disgust about police, but he always preached nonviolence. We're going to have nonviolent marches, nonviolent sit-ins. Everything was nonviolent, not to attack the police, because the police would outnumber the black communities. We know that. But if you look at the models from old days to now, at the 60s, policing has changed somewhat. It's changed a lot because we have now more African-American police chiefs. We have more African-American sheriffs. So we have more African-Americans on the police department. So that mindset changed. Even though Dr. King advocated for progressive reimagining police, some people today take it the wrong way when you say reimagining police. It's reimagining what we do in our communities. How do we save our young folks from being incarcerated? How do we save our young folks from going to jail? So Dr. King, he meant a lot to policing. We know that he was always under attack by the FBI. We know they would call his house. We know a lot of stuff that the police done, even from the march across the Selman Bridge, the bridge that day, the Edwin Pettis Bridge, how it turned from a peaceful march to a violent march where several African Americans were injured during that time.
And of course, we think about modern day policing, and you cannot forget about individuals like George Floyd, where it's still happening. There have been some great improvements across the country. I can look at you two and say great improvements because you're both elected by the people to head constables' offices in Harris County and in Waller County. But we still have instances of situations like George Floyd.
Yes. And, a lot of times when we look at the situation, we look at the situation where black officers going in, and a lot of times we don't get the respect from neither side. We don't get the respect sometimes from our own community. We don't get the respect in the white community especially, but we try to build that bridge and build that relationship and do community active policing in order to let the people understand you have to work with us. We have to work with you. Without that, we can't solve the crimes in our community. The first person I tell you all the time you're going to call is the police. Mm-hmm. Because when there's a problem, you're going to call us. So let's learn how to respect each other. And so therefore, we can build a bridge. But there's so much things that we have to do to bring people together.
All right, we'll get to you, Captain or Constable Phillips, in just a second in this special remembering the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. We'll be back with more Factor Uncensored in just a moment. We are remembering the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, and our guests are back with us. We have Constable Smith and Constable Phillips. Constable Phillips, pick up where Constable Smith left off. When we talk about, we've seen some great advances in policing and law enforcement in this country, but we still have instances of George Floyd.
Well, one of the best things that happened, I feel, in law enforcement was the video cameras to capture not only the conduct of police, but also capture the conduct of the citizen.
Yes.
And I wrote a piece about a couple of weeks ago and talked about citizens, police reaction with young black men or young black folks. That I told them there's no courthouse in the street. There's no courthouse at roadside. So if you stop by the police, be polite, be courteous, and give them information they're requesting. It's not against the law to video camera, to have your video camera to record the actions of the officer. And if the officer say turn it off, you don't have to turn it off. You ask for a supervisor. Because just as he's recording the event, you don't record the event yourself. So I see in certain instances where the behavior of officers has better, and sometimes the citizens, I've seen behavior that's like way out of line with the police. So we just have to work on that partnership with community organizations, whether it's the pastors, whether it's the Shape Center, or different things in Houston, to bridge that gap between the law enforcement and community. That'll go a long ways.
Constable Smith, one of the things that Dr. King wanted was people to work together. How do you get that spirit of cooperation with the African American community and law enforcement? What does it take?
Well, events, we do events. We have times when we bring them together, and, you know, just investing in the community and showing them that how much the police care about you. You know, we have to have some passion and where they can feel it. And a lot of times our community need to feel that more to build that relationship. You know, a lot of police stand off kind of thing. I go and touch people all the time, and that builds that relationship with them and having that communication and getting them to open up. Once your spirit closed and the people's spirit closed, they just don't want to hear nothing from the police. It's just a bad situation, but we got to change that. We have to.
In the last 30 seconds, what's your piece of advice on that?
That, as Herschel said, community building by going out with different events in the community, having town hall meetings, talking about incidents that occur. We have a site in my precinct where we have see something, say something. So if there's any type of misconduct by police, you can report it anonymously. If there's crime in your community, report it anonymously. So I think the more we partnership with the community leaders and getting out in the community and say, hey, we are just like y'all.
Okay. All right, Captain. I will not let you be constable. You're no longer captain.
I'm just Smokey Phillips. I'm just Smokey Phillips.
All right. And Constable Smith, thank you for joining us here. We'll be